Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're talking about two terms many people use interchangeably, motivation and discipline. So Marina, let's talk about these two terms. What do you think people mean when they say motivation, and what do you think they mean when they say discipline?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about this because I'm self-employed and I'm a writer, and I have a lot of random projects that of varying lengths. And so I need both motivation and discipline. But I think when people talk about motivation, it's a feeling, right? Where they have the energy, they have the idea, they have the sprint of like that burst of time or burst of wanting to work on it. And discipline to me is more of it's more of a muscle. So discipline is when you just do it whether you want to or not. And I think that's a big difference. Motivation is when you want to work on something, and discipline is working on something regardless of wanting to.
Yeah, so we have this article on Gen 20 that Rachel wrote back in December of 2019. And she says in here that just because someone is motivated to do the work doesn't guarantee that they're disciplined enough to complete said work. And I think that's really interesting because motivation is, I think we're all kind of like looking for motivation to motivate us to reach our goals, but I think what we really need is discipline, because motivation kind of ebbs and flows, right? It's not like a state we're constantly in, because you can be motivated, you can be unmotivated. I guess those are just the two states.
Medium motivated. Yeah,
Yeah.
And when it comes to certain tasks, like honestly, when it comes to emails, I'm always unmotivated to respond. But I know in order to have a thriving business, I have to respond. And that takes discipline because it's hard to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah, I think it's like discipline is more focused, I think, and like no room for change or error, really. Whereas motivation is more like it's really just a feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel motivated or I feel unmotivated. Whereas with discipline, it's like I have to do this. Like there's no if, ands, or buts. Like this is just what's happening, and we're gonna get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this article Rachel wrote, she points out if you wait until you're motivated, you'll never get things done. And this couldn't be more true. When I first started writing, I would wait until I had the feeling of writing or the idea, and ask me how often I wrote.
How often did you write?
Never. I never wrote
Oh
because it was just,
no.
I'd come up with an idea, but it'd be right before bed and I'd be tired, or I would wake up in the morning intending to write, but just didn't feel like it. So I thought I'd wait until I felt like it. And it was just chaos. It was chaos. So I learned how to schedule out my time and become disciplined in writing. And I feel like discipline helps you find motivation. I think you need discipline to have motivation.
Yeah, because she says you can't control when you feel motivated or how motivated you are to do something, but it's discipline gets the job done. And I really think that's like the perfect way to put it, right? Because I think discipline too is also very tied into our habits. So I think you can probably talk a little bit more to that about your writing habits and how they changed once you kind of came to this point where you were like, motivation is not the only thing that's going to get me to where I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. This past year, I wrote a novel. In 2020, I wrote a novel. And I used to kind of work on it every day, but I would work on it at the point of the day when I felt like it. And 2020 was a hard year. I got really burnt out and I never felt like it. And so one day I realized that the calendar was ticking, the clock was ticking, and I was going to end the year without having reached my goal of finishing my manuscript. And so I had a serious talk with myself and I scheduled out time every day, including the weekends, even though I would have rather slept in. And I wrote every day. And the longer I kept my habits of writing from like 9 to 11 or 10 to noon, the easier it got because discipline's a muscle. So you just keep working on it and it gets easier or you get stronger, whichever your mentality is. And that building those habits and learning to protect my time got me more motivated because I saw the progress I was making. And then I would, like, the closer I got to the end, the more motivated I was because I was so close. And so the habits helped me build the discipline, and the discipline helped me build the motivation.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like a symbiotic relationship, right? Like one kind of leads more to the other because as you're saying, like the closer you got to the end, the more motivated you were, but you wouldn't have gotten there if you weren't disciplined enough to do it. And I think when it comes to discipline, I think you really have to set habits in place and make them non-negotiable habits.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the time you write every day or this is the time you exercise every day or whatever, things like that. And I remember a few years ago, I think I talked about this book in our Books That Changed Our Lives episode in season one. Yeah, it's Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. And in it, I had like a few takeaways from it. We will link the blog post I wrote about it in the show notes. But one thing about it was like making your habits non negotiable and having habit rules essentially. So, one thing that I really took from that book is like when you're setting up your habits, you don't allow yourself to change or skip something that day. So, for example, say you are trying to be active 30 minutes per day. Great, fantastic goal, love it. So, today you're feeling pretty lazy. You're like, I really just want to sit on the couch. I need to rest. Like, that's great. But also, you like if you allow yourself to be able to change things, especially up to the last minute, you're never going to have the discipline to reach your goals. So if you're like, I'm going to the gym at 5:30 and it's 5:29 and you still haven't put your gym clothes on or wherever you're working out now at home in your basement, thanks COVID, you're probably not going to have the discipline to do that. But if you say, okay, I'm going to get my activity in today and tomorrow I'll take the day off, I think that making sure that you give yourself some grace, but don't allow yourself to become so flexible in your discipline that you just steamroll yourself is really important.
Yeah, I feel like part of discipline is being a little tough with yourself. And I definitely had to learn that when I was first building my writing routine because I knew I wanted to write for 2 hour blocks because I'm a deep focuser. And so I don't do well when I'm interrupted and I don't do well in short bursts because it's like an interruption. And but I was working on these 2 hour blocks whenever I felt like it. So it would waft through the day and I'd get to the end of the day and it's like, oh, well, I don't have 2 hours left of the day because I want to go to bed at the certain time. And and I realized, okay, I know my writing is better, like my brain works better to write in the mornings. And so I'm going to block off this time. And if that in that morning, if I'm not feeling great, if I'm like sick, obviously I will take time off and rest. But if I'm just kind of feeling blah or unmotivated, I'll still sit down and I might not get a solid 2 hours of writing in, or I might not get great writing in, but I'm going to sit there and do it. And then if I think, oh, this was just really hard, I need more time in the morning tomorrow, then I'll schedule it for the afternoon. But I make it a hard, like, built into my calendar time of, 1 to 3 or whatever, so that I can't like outwit myself and weasel away out of my time. And I think you'll experience this as well as someone who's been running her own business for a decade. Um, that so often I feel like people ask me, well, how do you do it? I couldn't do it. I hate working from home, or I couldn't work for myself. I'd never get anything done. And it's like, well, this is what I want, so I make it happen. I
Yeah. And if it's not what you want and you quote unquote couldn't do it, then don't do it. Like it's really that simple. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I think so many times we tend to overcomplicate things when it's just a straightforward path for you. And when you want something, you tend to have the discipline to make it happen. And I think Marina and I are kind of talking about this concept a little bit in a mini course we are working on when it comes
Stay
to goal
tuned.
setting. But just the idea of if you have set a goal and you're not finding yourself disciplined or motivated to reach that goal, maybe you don't want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that's fine,
it's
you
not a
know?
reflection of you lacking something other than maybe lacking an interest in the goal.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, because we were talking about this, and I think it was a post on Instagram where it was like, if you're not reaching a goal, you just need to change your method. And I don't subscribe to that
mm,
mentality. I subscribe to maybe this isn't the goal for you.
yeah, I think a perfect example of that would be a like a year ago when I first started, well, depending on when this podcast comes out. In January 2020, when I first started working with Serena, my career coach and friend who we've had on our podcast, I knew I wanted to get out of the job I had, and I knew I wanted to be working for myself, but I didn't really understand what I would be doing or how to do that. And so she and I worked together for a year, and I came up with so many different iterations of what my business could be. And I remember I'd meet with her in the early stages, and I would say, well, this is what I want to do. I want to write content for other people. And then she'd give me a task to test it out. And I would come back to her in a month and say, well, I really couldn't do it. And she would say, I think you just don't want to. And I was like, yeah, I don't, but I don't know what else to do with my skills. And she's like, okay, this is not working. So let's not change the method, let's change the vision. And when I landed on writing coaching, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, yeah, I was actually the least excited sounding ever, which if you know me, you know I'm always like very excited. And
Yeah,
when
Marina's
Serena,
like 20 out of 10 on the excitement scale about
yeah,
everything.
it's
I
just
love the energy.
it's just my vibe. But I remember I was talking to Serena and she said, well, what if you just started writing coaching? And I said, yeah. And that was my tone, that was my level. But the next, that, not even the next day, that afternoon, I got off the call with her and I launched my writing sprints, and I've been doing them for 5 months. And it's hard and I'm still figuring it out, but I don't mind working on it, and I work on it every day, even on the weekends, because I really want this to work out and I really enjoy it.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of the discipline feeds my motivation.
Yeah, so you can see kind of like even at that real life example where it's not changing the method, it's going to get you there. It's changing the vision.
Hmm.
I love that. Is that a Serena quote or a Marina quote?
It's a Marina quote.
All right, all right. We just want to make sure we credit the right person
I am a writer, guys. I do come up with quotes sometimes.
because I love that so much and completely agree with it. And I mean, I think that even if you become disciplined about like one thing in your life, whether it's your career, a hobby you really want to pursue, something like turning something you love into a business, exercise. I'm trying to think of what else people do. Um,
Well, like learning to cook, just if
mhm,
you want to make more interesting meals now that you have to cook every meal, you know, obviously the motivation to cook is often hunger, but you have to
mhm,
buy the ingredients and figure out the recipe and plan this out and plan ahead enough time that you can eat before you're hangry. So
mhm,
it takes discipline to kind of achieve anything we really want. And discipline, I think, often
mhm,
has a like a negative tone around it because, disciplinarian, severe, whatever. But discipline is just a way, it's a muscle that you build so that you can show up for yourself every day. It's a friend, it's not a foe.
mhm. Yeah. Wow, you were on point with the zingers in this episode, I have to say.
I'm not even drinking coffee right now, but I did already have 2 cups today.
Yeah, I think this has been like a really great candid conversation even about just what discipline kind of looks like in our own lives. And I think for myself, even like my schedule is just kind of in this waiting period of just waiting for my baby to come. But it's like, I think having a toddler too has also helped me be more disciplined because I know I only have so much time every day to myself where I can do X, Y, and Z. things that I need to do. So when I really want to accomplish something, I have to be disciplined enough to do it in that time. And, I'm not always like super motivated about all these things, but I can't rely on being motivated to get them done. Like I have to follow my discipline plan,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, you're 36 weeks pregnant right now and a mom of a 2-year-old toddler. I would say your default mode is probably tired, and it's hard to feel
Oh, for
motivated when you're
sure.
tired, but you you work harder than anyone I know. You're always working. We're always working because we want to get this stuff accomplished.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like I can't just wait until I'm motivated because I don't really have the time to be motivated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that hits. You don't have time to be motivated. That's true. You don't have time to
Yeah.
waste waiting to be
Yeah.
motivated.
Yeah.
There's this quote that I can never remember who said it or the exact wording, but my one of my writing instructors, who's now my friend, said this to me in a conversation about writing when I was in grad school. And she said, when writing is like rowing a boat or being on a boat, when there's no wind for your sails, you just get out the oars and row. And so when you don't have an idea or the motivation to write or to do something, you don't wait for wind to carry you. You whip out those rowing muscles and you make it happen.
You row, row, row your boat.
Row your boat. And I don't know, I wish I remembered the quote more succinctly, but the idea of it I think about all the time, especially when I'm sitting at
Mm.
my desk looking at a blank Word doc thinking, what the heck am I going to write about?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Okay, so we hope this conversation was helpful to you to kind of bring a little more clarity to motivation versus discipline. We're not really, strictly defining it here, but kind of just wanting to help you reframe the way you look at your goals and what you want to accomplish in your life. So, thank you so much for listening. We'd love if you left a rating and review, and we'll chat with you again soon. Bye.